Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, we had some big doings going on in the Capitol this past week. This was the deadline to enter the governor's race. And on the very last day, with just a little over 2 hours to go before the deadline, who walks into the Capitol? Drum roll, please. That's right, is former Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin. And there's been a lot of talk, will he, won't he, could he, should he? Well, he showed up right before the deadline. He starts off by reserving the Capitol Rotunda and giving a speech. And it was a campaign speech, and to be honest, it was a good campaign speech. He talked about the problems facing Kentucky, conservative solutions dealing with the economy, with crime, with taxation programs, all kinds of things that really conservatives would want to hear. And then when he finishes his speech, instead of going and signing up to run for governor, he turns around and goes home without entering the governor's race. And he really just pranked the entire Kentucky liberal media. I couldn't help but let out a little yeah, he completely pranked them all without entering the race after much speculation. I do not think this will be the last that we see former Governor Bevin. I think you just might see his name on the ballot in the future, and we'll see what the future holds. So we do have now, however, 12 different people who have officially entered the Republican contest to be governor. So we got to decide who we're going to support on this. So I've asked you before, I'll ask you one last time to put a comment into the video saying this is a question I would like the candidates to answer. And I want to bundle up these questions and send them to the candidates saying we would like to know, as the conservatives of Kentucky, specific answers to these specific questions. And then after we get the answers back, I'll take the top 3, maybe top 4 candidates, and we'll be like, these are the questions, and this is what they answered. And then we'll do an analysis of it. And I hope that those questions, answers, and analysis will help you as you're making your decision on who you will support in the Republican primary for governor. I have not yet decided who I will be supporting. And the answers to those questions are going to play a big factor into that. But the governor's race is not the only race that's been seeing a shakeup here lately. Specifically, the other big one I think is going to be very interesting to watch is the Secretary of State race, the Republican primary for Secretary of State. Right now, the Secretary of State, Michael Adams, well, he had somebody showed up at the very last minute. It's a big contender. It's going to be a bit of a showdown. We're going to be talking about that one in the coming weeks. I think this could be the most interesting race outside of governor that's going on. And the Secretary of State position is going to have a huge impact on elections in Kentucky from now on and forever. So make sure you tune in as we look into that race in the weeks to come. But I want to spend some time now looking at some of the laws that the legislature is passing. The legislature came back into session this past week. The House of Representatives already passed a bill. They passed House Bill 1, which now goes on to the Senate and is expected to pass overwhelmingly. House Bill 1, what it does, it takes your income tax for Kentucky, which is right now at 4.5%, and it drops it down 0.5% down to 4%. Now, this relates to what happened last year. Last year, the Kentucky legislature decided they wanted to get rid of Kentucky's personal income tax, which has been at 5% for many years. So they last year moved it down to 4.5%, and now they just passed a bill that would move it down to 4% on its way to 0, moving about 0.5% each year. Now, on the surface, a lot of people are like, well, hooray, less, personal income tax here in Kentucky. However, keep this in mind, this is going to come with a trade-off. If the state is going to say, well, we're not going to do a personal income tax, it's not like these guys are going to give up a 1 red cent of money. So where are they going to get the money from? Remember here a month or so ago, there was this big hullabaloo about this new utility tax on second homes and things like that. So what we're going to be seeing is a trade-off from the personal income tax And they're going to be trading that for taxes on different things. And we'll be keeping track of what those different things are so that you can be informed on these different bills before they get voted on, and keep your legislators accountable for their voting record, whether they vote for it or against it. I'm not even particular if they vote against something and it passes anyway, as long as the legislators stood their ground and stood up for what is right, not necessarily for what's going to happen. If they stood up for what is right, I'll put them back in office, whether they won or lost that fight. And I hope you will as well. If you want to contact your legislators, the phone number at the Capitol is 1-800-372-7181. That's the message center at the Capitol. You can leave a message for your legislator. I want to hit one other topic before we close today, and this is kind of huge. It has to do with the Pfizer company. You know, Pfizer, they're the drug company that's made this injection here, and they are starting to pump big money into Kentucky politics. Now, why would they want to do this? Well, maybe it's because they have made now more than $100 billion in revenue for their COVID injection. You know the injection that I'm talking about.
Mr. Simpson, you realize this may result in blood clots, heart attack, or loss of your immune system?
Yeah. Just give me the syrup. It was worth it.
So yes, Pfizer has made $100 billion on this thing, set to make a whole lot more. And so they've started to enter Kentucky politics. And they have given the Republican Party of Kentucky $100,000. Oh, wait a minute. No, this just in. It's not $100,000. What is it? Is it $200,000? 3, 4, 5? Oh my word, the information has come in. The Pfizer company has given the Republican Party of Kentucky $1 million. Wow, good night, nurse. Why are they doing that? Because Pfizer is very interested in lobbying lawmakers. Just this last year, Pfizer spent $11.6 million lobbying just the federal government. The federal government very much doing advertising for this private company's product, and we, the taxpayer, are having to pay for that, and the price is about to go up. I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. The Pfizer company, its affiliates, and PACs have been very generous in donating to specific candidates as well. This past year, Pfizer donated more than $10,000 to the campaign of Kentucky Congressman Brett Guthrie. I've got this idea that whoever pays you is who you work for. I think that companies should be allowed to lobby our congressmen, our state representatives and senators. They should be allowed to present their arguments, say this would be good, or don't do this, this would be bad, but they shouldn't be allowed to donate 1 red cent to either an individual campaign or to the party as a whole. Whoever pays you is who you are working for. And this does not pass the stink test. This stinks to high heaven. And by the way, talking about the price of the Pfizer shot, they have come out publicly in their statement saying that the price of the shot, they are going to quadruple the cost starting next year. So why so much money is being given to different specific candidates and to the Republican Party as a whole of Kentucky? This money has been specifically designated to renovate the Republican Party headquarters building here in Kentucky up there at the Capitol. Maybe that's because there were some bills that were proposed during these last few sessions that would say we want to give people protection from being forced to take this by their employer or their school or other things. And some of the Republican leadership said, no, we're not going to pass these bills. And now Pfizer is like, hey, you didn't pass them. It can be mandated for all these different groups. Well, we're going to donate $1 million and give $10,000 to some of your candidates specifically. Doesn't pass the stink test now, does it? So these are some of the things that we're talking about here on Patriot Point. A lot of things you're not going to get on the mainstream media. Make sure you tune in the coming weeks as we're going to talk about these different questions and answers that'll be up before the different candidates so you can find out where they stand. Look into that Secretary of State race. And we're also going to be doing a lot of the different bills that are going to be before the legislature.
Marge, I'm confused. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending?
It's an ending. That's enough.
That's what we have for you this week. Until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.